So this is the representation of the model. Curriculum, instruction, assessment, and in the middle of it all is governance, which is the foundation, the important thing that holds it all together, that is our starting point. And notice how the arrows go both ways, and I'm going to be explaining that to you. So when we work with a school district, and we're going to come in, here you are, and we're going to start doing the CLI model with you, we're going to start with the governance piece, okay? And we begin with a steering committee, and they just get this little folder so they don't realize what they have ahead of them, because it looks very simple here. And we have, this is a representative group, administrators, teachers, community members, board members, to say we're going to do this model. But this group has only one job, and that is to write policy that will be approved by the board, that will become policy, that says how will curriculum, instruction, assessment, and so forth be handled in the school district. Districts have policy for everything else in the world, you know, extracurricular activities and bullying and attendance, but especially back when the CLI started, hardly anyone had policy about curriculum instruction. And so we get that set, and as I said, then it's approved by the board. We help them develop the policy and go through, and you can use this little guideline and change it and adapt it. Then that policy establishes a curriculum coordinating council, this governing group that will be a permanent group in the district. In some cases, the steering committee will decide that they will become the first council. And other times they will say, no, we're just going to do that, now we'll get other people to come in. But once again, that council is representative of administrators, board members, teachers, community members, teachers from all levels, primary, intermediate, middle level, high school. So it's a representative group. And they are going to become the decision makers, action takers throughout everything that we are doing. When they start, they get a little bit bigger set of materials. We're done with this little folder, and now they have this training set of materials. It's going to take them through all the kinds of things that they will do. Their very first job is to set up a long-range plan. Which subject are we going to start working with? We're going to develop curriculum. We're going to talk about the instruction pieces and the assessment. That's all going to happen. We can't do them all at once. And of course there are boards of education, some places, who says, well, let's just do them all. Let's get it done this year. That's not going to work. And that's part of our job, is to convince them and guide them through. You can't do them all and do them well. Trying to do too much too soon is a major flaw in many organizations, and that's in our pathways. So they decide what subject we're going to start with. We make this plan that goes ahead for about 5 to 7 years, so we can see when we're going to get through all of the subjects and all of the steps and everything before it kind of starts over again. But then they have so many other kinds of decisions to do, to make. Back again when CLI started in the early 90s, it was not unusual at all for school districts to do curriculum. Everybody makes curriculum, but Dan, you used to be in charge of curriculum, and I knew it never would have happened where you were. But in other school districts, what would happen once they were finished with the curriculum book and they gave it to the teachers?
They put it in a drawer.
Yeah.
Okay, or shelf or somewhere. I was with a school district one time in Kansas, out in western Kansas, talking to them about did they want to do the CLI model. And I had that group there, the board members and some administrators and teachers, and I said, have you developed curriculum? And they said, yes, we've done all the subjects. And I said, that's good. One of the strengths of the CLI model is that we build on what you already have. We don't toss it out, and start over. We use the good things that are there. So could you show me one of your curriculum guides so I could kind of see where you are and what kind of format you use? And all these heads kind of went down, and people were kind of looking at each other, and pretty soon I heard a loud whisper at the other end, does anybody know where one is? And I'm not making this up. That was really the truth. They didn't even know where one was. So we say, we have all these follow-up pieces. And of course, once you start on one of them, it's like a set of dominoes. It just keeps going. Well, if we're going to make sure that we're really doing the instruction piece, we're really teaching this, it's not going to go on a shelf or in a drawer. The teachers are going to ask, well, what are the criteria? What does mastery mean if they have to master this? What does that mean? Gosh, if they do really well on an assessment that I give in October and they all pass it with flying colors, have they mastered it? What if they can't do anything with it in March? If they make a good grade, they make a B or an A, can we say that's mastery? Well, maybe, but what if you don't all grade the same? What if you three are all teaching a required course in high school, the same course, and Teresa says, when I give an assessment, I write the scores in the grade book, we're done, we're moving on. Ken says, well, I want to make sure my students are really learning, so if you don't do well the first time, I'll let you take the assessment again. You've got to study, you've got to do some more work, but I'm going to average the grades. Kim says, you know, if that didn't work again, we'll keep working on it, and we will take that assessment 2 or 3 times, and I'm going to take the highest score. Now, they're all doing the same course and the same requirement. Is this okay? So these are the kinds of things that the council has to deal with. One question, and then when we make those decisions about grading issues, how about grade reporting? What's our report card going to look like? And it goes on. So that's why this is such an important group that has so many decisions to make, so many kinds of things to work on, okay, and it goes on. It's a permanent group. The membership may change, of course, as people retire, move in and out or whatever, or usually people have 3-year terms on here and they may apply and serve another term or whatever, or they may leave after the 3 years to keep the flow moving and having different people. But the group, the council, exists forever, and they are keepers of the vision. They know where we've been, they know what kinds of discussions we've had, they know when we need to address those again, and so forth. The length of time that they need to have for a meeting may go from a full day, a month at the beginning, to an hour or 2 after school, 7 years down the road or something, but they still are continually meeting. Okay, now I'm going to go do this triangle at the other end because we're going to be a subject committee now. So the first part is to do the curriculum. There's a new binder. See, it's red and it goes with the curriculum. It goes with that little triangle. So we work with the subject area committee according to that long-range plan. Everybody on that committee gets this binder, and this is how we guide them through step by step of what to do. The committees range in size depending on the size of the school district. If it's a very large district, we have probably at least 1 and maybe 2 teachers from each grade level. If it's a very small school district, we may have 1 teacher representing 2 or 3 grade levels. But it's a K-12 committee, and we're going to address how to create curriculum. In many places, in fact, Stu shared with us some things a student had said just last week, especially with the new Common Core. Teachers are told, here's the Common Core. That's your curriculum. Go teach it. And we know that standards are not curriculum. They're too complex, they're too vague, some of them aren't measurable, there are too many, there are whatever. Teachers, even now with the Common Core, as we are working with them, are reading them and saying, what? What does that mean? What? And so we have to interpret it, and we have to get it into language that we really understand and can teach and can measure. So this is what we do. We develop our curriculum in terms of outcomes and components. They are units. I don't expect you to read this, but I just want you to see that an outcome is big. It's what happens by the end of a unit of instruction, a whole unit. It may take several weeks or most of the year if it's reading or something to get through that, but that's what students can do to show us they've learned that. You can't just walk in Monday and teach that. As I said, it's weeks long, it's a whole unit. So we break it down into components, the smaller pieces. What does a student, where are we going to start? What's the first step? Some of our outcomes, I chose a short one here with only 3, some of our outcomes may have 10 to 12 components down here. So that's where we start, and the instruction piece is going to be very important about this, so I'll head there in a second. Our requirements, besides aligning with the standards, are that these outcomes and components must be dynamic. They must get students to have higher level thinking skills in play. It can't be something they could just read in the textbook and take the test at the end. It has to have dynamic involvement. So it's a little different than what the old curriculums looked like, and it's much more usable than the standards themselves, but it does align with the standards. We know they have to do those standards, so we even put the standards number here. Each one we do work on the wall. Here's the curriculum, here's the standard. Where is that? Where is this? And we go back and forth making sure that it's aligned, but we put it into usable form. Okay, that takes usually a full year of meetings if we're talking once a month. for the SAC to get that written. And then they do have a curriculum guide that they want to give to the teachers. Now, we want to make sure it's not like Dan said, and we're putting them over here in a drawer or something. So this, unlike that, which is a committee, this is for every single teacher in the district who teaches that subject. So the first time we do this training, which is at the beginning of the year, following the development of a curriculum, we're talking a lot of teachers, especially if it's a very large district. So let's suppose it's math. That means every single elementary teacher, because they all teach math, and then the middle level math teachers and the high school math teachers. The next year, it's not going to be so huge because the training that we do isn't specific to a subject. It's instructional procedures, it's pacing guides. How do you look at your curriculum and decide the pace of getting through that for the year? It's, we look at every single component, those smaller pieces, and say, how are you going to teach? Look at your curriculum, not the math curriculum, now we're on science. Look at your curriculum. How are you going to teach that component? What strategies are you going to use? Write them down. What resources will you use? Don't tell me the textbook, tell me what pages. How are you going to assess that little component to make sure that they know that step before you go to the next step? So it's huge, but it's doesn't matter which subject, it's the same training. So year 2, when science is coming instead of math, for example, those elementary teachers don't need to come again because they already had that training. So it gets smaller, you know, it's the high school and the middle school and any new elementary teachers. So that's an extensive training, and it's all in here. How do you do those little assessments? What do you need to make the instruction match that curriculum? And remember, there are the arrows going both ways. It's not what used to happen. I would get a new curriculum, or someone else would get a new curriculum, and it might say what students are supposed to do with, what does this one say? Excuse me, let me go around. Thank you. Students will interpret and characterize the dependence of organisms on one another and their environment in terms of habitat. And I would look at that and say, oh, I've been teaching habitat forever. Great. Let me pull out last year's lesson plan and I'll just go. Well, maybe last year's lesson plan didn't have them interpreting anything. So I haven't really aligned my curriculum. You see the difference? I just was identifying habitats and doing a little bit of comparing, but I haven't interpreted and characterized. So we make the teachers really look at what that says. How do you make sure your instruction truly aligns with that curriculum so that we're making sure we get where we need to go, which aligns with the standards. So now I'm going to the other part of the triangle. I needed some exercise this morning. The last part is the assessment. Obviously, instruction includes assessment. I mean, that's a part of it. And I just said, how do you assess those little components and make sure the students can really do each part before they move on to the next one? So there's assessment training in there. But this has to do with what we call common assessments. So after that first year, and the first year when the teachers teach that, they give feedback to the subject committee. We make sure that curriculum's working. If they have any questions and they say, oh gosh, my kids all did awful on this. Was it my teaching or is it the curriculum? We actually make adjustments to that curriculum after the first year. Then it stays in stone till the next cycle so we can use data. If you keep changing the curriculum every year and changing the assessments every year, then you can't compare your data because your variables are changing. So now we're going to develop what we call common assessments, which, when do we pass that back again, please? These are going to be only for the big outcome. Teachers can do these component pieces, the instruction, the assessments, however they want. Might not be the same. You may decide to have yours get up and give a presentation that you're going to evaluate them on. And you may decide to have yours turn in a paper. That's okay. But this is the big curriculum that we need to make sure that all of our students have learned, that they can demonstrate that learning more than once, and so forth. So we prepare common assessments. And this binder is just on that. And so it's back to the subject committee. They're the ones who do this. They have the assessments that teachers used when they were teaching it that first year. If they want to collect those and pull some data or pull some ideas from those assessments, they might say, oh, I really like this teacher's use of the first question, and I like how that teacher had them do a demonstration. And they may do that. or they may decide just to start from scratch and create them, because this is even more in-depth training about assessment than what's in there. And so now we have common assessments that all the teachers of the same grade level and course will use. So all chemistry teachers will use the same assessments for their outcomes. All third grade math teachers will use the same assessments for their outcomes. And then that shows us how well students are doing on the curriculum, which is aligned to the standards, and therefore it's a good picture of how they're going to do on state assessments with the standards as well. So those are the three pieces. Leslie made this for me. She makes all her little materials. Thank you, Leslie. But as you can see, the curriculum is K-12 alignment, aligned with the standards, and we use data to make sure that we are making good decisions when we prepare the curriculum, as well as how it's being done. The instruction, the classroom and materials organization, planning and pacing, instructional design, and finally the assessment. It's aligned to the local curriculum and the standards, and then we check all of the things that we need to check, like validity, test construction, administration, scoring. All of that is a part of this training. That's the model.